Welcome to our Devos. We are talking this week about finishing strong and the fact that we were made for this. Made for this. That's the title of this series. And essentially, it's the title of kind of some of the reflections that we want to be having concerning how we are when it comes to the way we look at ourselves with regard to God building us and hardwiring us with specific purposes in mind. When we looked at our sermon over this weekend and we examined the character of Caleb, when he reflects on his life at 85 years old, he talks about how he was made for this. He was strengthened for this particular task. And so as we examine the New Testament, it really goes to show that God also made us with the idea in mind to do certain things. So the first thing I want you to realize as we think about finishing strong and where we are in particular in this season of our church is that you were built to withstand. We were built to withstand. We don't see in Scripture a lot of wiggle room for us when it comes to our faith to be people who were built to flee and people who were built to move on when things got difficult. It's tragic when you look at, and I'm thinking of the church because of what our project is, and we're in the middle of this capital campaign and thinking about our church overall. But one of the things that makes our church unique is the founder is a person who believes in coming, staying, remaining faithful to a specific place in time. And it's pretty unheard of in a lot of churches. I know that we talk about that a lot, and the reason why is because we want you to know it's unique. Somebody that was new to our church years ago, they since became good members, they said that we don't realize, because we don't go to a lot of other churches, just what goes on in other churches. And one of the patterns that happens in a lot of churches is that there's this idea of not being able to withstand. You see pastors leaving, you see ministries failing, you see leaders that decide that this isn't the right calling for them because it's difficult. Well, in reality, Scripture teaches us that this stuff is going to be difficult. But the Bible also tells us that we are built to withstand. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 8 through 9, Paul encourages the Corinthian church by saying, we're afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed. So you see this interesting dichotomy where you have on one side this horrible adjective of a state. We are afflicted in every way. But then he says, but we're not completely crushed. So we might be knocked down, but we're not knocked out. And then he says, we are driven, we are perplexed, confused, kind of discombobulated, but yet we are not driven to despair, not completely hopeless. Of course, hope is the main thrust of the Christian faith, in that we believe in a hope beyond this life. Then he goes on to say, we're persecuted, but we're not forsaken. Like, no matter what happens around us, because of Jesus, we're never alone. We're never forsaken. He said he'll neither leave us nor forsake us. So this contrast is very apparent the more you live your life. There's going to be days when you are feeling perplexed. Like, how is this happening? How did this happen? What's going on? But in reality, you were built by God to withstand. You were built by God to have hope. You were built by God to be able to say, I am standing strong. I know that I am under attack, but I'm not completely forsaken. I know that I am under stress, but I am not completely crushed. I might be down in this round, but I know that I am not out of this race. And so many times do we see people in their faith look at a temporary season and assign it to their whole lives. That's not you. To finish strong, you have to realize that you were made for this. You were built for this. You are a warrior called into wartime, and God is equipping you. Not that you are going to do the battling and depend on your strength, but instead that you are depending on Him and allowing Him to enable you to finish strong.